The sun hung low over the jagged mountains of Karos IV, casting long shadows over the fortress of the female war chief, Azraya. Her reputation stretched across the galaxy, whispered in fear by conquered worlds and rebellious colonies alike. Azraya was ruthless, a warrior without equal, known to crush entire civilizations without remorse. Yet today, her sharp amber eyes reflected something unfamiliar. Curiosity. A horn sounded in the distance, echoing across the stone valleys. Guards scrambled to attention, their metallic armor clinking in the fading light. Azraya sat on her throne, carved from the bones of a creature said to have destroyed an entire fleet, and studied the horizon. The message had arrived. A tribute. Tributes were expected. Routine. Usually, they brought rare crystals, exotic spices, or captured beasts for her collection. But today's offering was different. From the horizon, a convoy of alien ships descended, their hulls sleek and shining. Soldiers marched behind them, carrying something in cages. Azraya's lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Let me see this tribute," she commanded, her voice like steel over velvet. The cages were opened one by one. The war chief's warriors expected jewels, rare minerals, even weapons. But what emerged made their collective jaws drop. Standing tall, despite ragged clothes and dirt-streaked face, was a human, a species Azraya had been told no longer existed. Her eyes narrowed. She rose from her throne, her boots striking the stone floor with a heavy thud. "Impossible," she hissed, stepping closer. "Humans were destroyed 2 centuries ago. I destroyed the last of them myself. And yet, here you stand." The human did not flinch. Their gaze met Azraya's, steady and unafraid. Even though their body was lean, battle-worn, and frail compared to the massive war chief, they took a careful step forward, arms slightly raised in a gesture of peace. "I am here because humans survive," the human said softly, their voice calm, yet carrying an unmistakable strength. A murmur ran through the crowd of soldiers. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Impossible. The last human is supposed to be gone. There are only legends now." Azraya's mind raced. Could this truly be real? Could a human, the most dangerous species she had ever faced, have survived in secret for 200 years? "You are strong," she said finally, her voice low, almost thoughtful. "Stronger than any human I have known. Speak. Why do you come?" The human tilted their head, studying her carefully. "I am offered as a tribute to you. But not to be enslaved, not to be broken. I am here to prove that humanity still lives, and that its spirit cannot be destroyed." Azraya blinked, taken aback by the audacity of the creature before her. They spoke with a confidence that most alien leaders lacked. Most beings feared her, bowed to her, or attempted to deceive her. This human, this fragile, strange being, stood without fear and challenged her in subtle ways. She motioned for her warriors to release them fully from the cage. As the human stepped down, they moved carefully but deliberately, each footstep echoing in the grand hall. Their eyes swept the room, cataloging every guard, every weapon, every potential threat. Azraya watched in silence. There was something about humans, the unpredictability, the courage, the relentless drive that always fascinated her. Even when she sought to annihilate them, she had thought she had seen the last of their kind. But now, the impossible had walked into her fortress. 2 centuries ago, Azraya said, pacing in front of the human, "I hunted your kind across the stars. I crushed your colonies. I burned your cities. I thought your species was finished. And yet, you breathe." The human's eyes softened, but their tone remained firm. "You did not finish us. Humans adapt. We survive. When you thought we were gone, we hid. We learned. And we endured. We waited. Azraya studied them carefully. Her warriors murmured among themselves. To see a human alive after 200 years was to challenge everything they believed. Yet the human's presence alone did not frighten her. Curiosity, yes. Interest, yes. But fear? Never. Then tell me, she said, sitting back on her throne, her fingers tapping against the carved bones. How have you survived? How did humanity endure when all others failed? The human smiled faintly. By refusing to die, by being clever, by trusting in our strengths and learning from our enemies. Humans are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the largest. But we have something every conqueror underestimates: persistence, creativity, and loyalty. Our minds are our weapons, and our hearts guide them. Azraya felt a flicker of respect she had not felt for any other being in decades. She had always admired strength, pure, raw power. But humans were something else. They were clever. They were dangerous in ways that brute force could not measure. And now, she asked, why are you here as a tribute? Do you seek alliance? Revenge? Or something else entirely? The human lifted their head, their gaze unwavering. I seek to remind the galaxy that humans still exist, that they are capable of more than destruction, that even when beaten, even when thought extinct, they rise again. I am here to show you, War Chief, that you were wrong to believe humans could be destroyed. Azraya's lips parted slightly. The audacity of this creature astounded her. 2 centuries ago, she had believed herself a god among warriors. And yet this single human, without weapons, without armies, challenged her perspective. Her mind flashed back to the wars she had fought. She remembered the humans she had crushed, the colonies she had burned. Every one of them had been stubborn, clever, cunning, but now, it seemed the species had learned to survive without confrontation, waiting for the right moment to return. You are bold, Azraya said finally, her tone almost admiring. Most beings would beg for mercy. Most would break under my gaze. You stand tall. You speak of human spirit. Yet I see your body is battered, your flesh weak. And still, you command attention, demand respect. Tell me, human, what is it you fear? The human's voice was steady. I fear nothing for myself. I fear only that your empire, so great, so powerful, might crush more beings as clever, as strong, as determined as we humans. That is the fear I carry. Not for me, but for the innocent, the oppressed, the forgotten. Humanity fights not for glory, but for survival. We rise, so others may live. Azraya was silent. She had conquered, she had ruled, she had destroyed entire civilizations without a second thought. Yet hearing this human speak the conviction, the bravery stirred something long buried inside her. Curiosity mixed with admiration, and a dangerous thought began to form. What if humans were not just survivors, but the greatest warriors she had ever underestimated? The room was quiet. Her warriors dared not breathe too loudly. Even the guards from the tribute convoy looked on in awe. The human, small in size but mighty in presence, held them all in thrall. Azraya leaned forward, her sharp eyes narrowing. Tomorrow, you will prove yourself, she said, her voice a low rumble. Not as a slave, not as a trophy. You will show me what humans are capable of. If you survive, perhaps, you may yet teach me something I have long forgotten. The human inclined their head slightly, a subtle sign of acknowledgement. I will not disappoint you. The sun disappeared behind the mountains, and the fortress was swallowed in darkness. Yet the human's presence seemed to illuminate the hall with a strange energy, a promise of resilience and power. Azraya watched them closely, her mind racing with possibilities. For the first time in 2 centuries, she felt a thrill she had thought lost. Anticipation. Tomorrow, the human would face trials meant to crush them. But if they survived, they would prove something far greater than strength or speed. They would prove that the spirit of humanity could not be extinguished, even by the most fearsome war chief in the galaxy. Azraya's amber eyes glinted as she whispered to herself, barely audible, "Impossible. The last human has returned. And yet, they are more than I imagined." The first part of this improbable reunion ended with a quiet tension, a fragile balance between curiosity, respect, and the potential for a force neither the galaxy nor Azraya herself could have predicted. And as the stars blinked overhead, the human remained calm, aware that survival had never been the only goal. To remind the universe that humans endure, that was their true mission. The next morning, Karos IV's twin suns rose over the jagged horizon, casting long, fiery streaks across the stone fortress. Azraya, the female war chief, stood atop the central tower, her silhouette sharp against the glowing sky. The human tribute was already awake, moving through the courtyard with quiet determination. Their presence drew curious glances from Azraya's warriors, who whispered among themselves. "She is alive," one muttered, "and moving like she owns the place." Azraya ignored them. She had seen many creatures, many species, that claimed strength and cunning. None had ever endured like a human. And this one, this impossible human, had survived 2 centuries in a galaxy that had sought to destroy them. Azraya descended into the courtyard, her boots echoing against the stone. The human was preparing for the trial she had promised, bending a piece of metal into a crude tool with bare hands, showing an instinct for invention that few aliens possessed. "Your first trial begins at sunrise," Azraya said, her voice calm but commanding. "You will face challenges designed to test strength, speed, and mind. Fail, and you will be remembered only as a curiosity, a failed tribute. Succeed, and perhaps you will teach me something worth remembering." The human nodded. "I understand. I will not fail." Azraya studied them closely. Their eyes, bright and unwavering, seemed to hold centuries of experience despite their youth. She wondered silently how a species thought extinct could survive. Not merely by hiding, but by thriving, adapting, and learning. The first trial began in the great arena, a vast chamber carved from the mountain itself. Pits of fire and spinning blades, walls of shifting stone, and streams of corrosive liquid formed a labyrinth meant to crush even the bravest of warriors. Azraya's soldiers watched eagerly, expecting the human to falter. The human stepped forward, scanning the maze with sharp, calculating eyes. Most beings would rush forward blindly, driven by fear. The human did not. They paused, observing the patterns of the blades, testing the edges of the stone walls with careful fingers. With a quiet hum, they calculated every move before stepping. Azraya's interest grew. She had trained warriors to navigate far simpler arenas. Yet this human moved, not with brute force, but with strategy, observation, and ingenuity. When a swinging blade threatened to strike, the human ducked under it, rolled across a narrow bridge, and used a piece of debris to jam the mechanism. The soldiers whispered in disbelief. How? How is this possible?" Azraya smiled faintly. It was a smile of recognition, not amusement. Humans had always been underestimated. They were small, weak in muscle compared to many alien species, but they compensated with minds that were sharper than any weapon. Hours passed, and the human navigated the trials with cunning, improvising tools, predicting patterns, and surviving traps that had killed veteran soldiers. By the end of the day, they emerged from the labyrinth not only alive, but triumphant. The audience, both alien and human, stared in awe. Azraya stepped forward. "You have survived the first test. Most warriors would have perished, yet you endure. Tell me, what drives you to persist? The human, panting but steady, looked at her. Survival is only the beginning. Humans endure not for themselves alone, but to prove that even in the face of extinction, we are capable of greatness. We fight so the memory of our species and our spirit cannot be erased. Azraya's mind replayed the words. For the first time in centuries, she felt the weight of respect and curiosity. A human was teaching her something she had never truly understood. Endurance was a kind of power, just as lethal as brute strength. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the humans sat near a fire, examining their hands and tools. Azraya approached and sat on a stone opposite them. She remained silent for several moments, letting the crackling flames fill the space. Tell me, she finally said, how did humans survive after I destroyed your worlds? After I hunted every last colony? You must have faced death countless times. The human's gaze drifted to the flames. We adapted. We hid among worlds that no one cared to watch. We learned from our enemies, from each other, and from the universe itself. While others assumed we were gone, we observed, studied, and prepared. Humanity survives not by force, but by patience and cunning. Even when our cities were burned, even when our fleets were shattered, we found ways to endure. Azraya's amber eyes narrowed. She had expected fear, resentment, or hatred, yet this human spoke without malice. Instead, there was wisdom, humility, and quiet strength. You survived while your species was hunted, she said slowly. And now, you come before me, alone. You do not seek revenge? The humans shook their head. Revenge is for those who cannot think beyond their pain. Humans survive to rebuild, to inspire, to protect. Hatred weakens, strategy strengthens, compassion endures. Azraya studied them for a long moment. She could see why humans had been so feared, so dangerous. Not because of raw power, but because of unpredictable intellect, cleverness, and moral strength. The following days brought new trials. Azraya sent the human to alien villages, testing their ability to negotiate, to understand, to lead. Where alien ambassadors relied on threats or manipulation, the human relied on reasoning and empathy. They convinced hostile villagers to work together, outsmarted bandits without violence, and even repaired ancient technology long thought lost. Azraya observed each success with a mixture of amazement and apprehension. This single human, alone, was reshaping worlds with ideas and actions, showing aliens that survival and strength were not only measured in weapons or conquest, but in wisdom and adaptability. One evening, after the human had returned from a long mission, Azraya confronted them privately. You amaze me, she said, pacing. I destroyed your species. I believed humans were extinct. Yet here you are, proving every lesson I learned about strength to be incomplete. How can one human accomplish so much? The human's expression was calm. Because humans endure. Because we never stop learning. Because our failures teach us, and our mistakes guide us. A single human may seem small, but the human spirit cannot be broken. Not by war, not by fear, not even by time itself. Azraya paused, considering their words. She remembered the battles she had fought, the colonies she had destroyed. Each had fallen because of brute force, intimidation, and strategy. And yet this human had survived, not in spite of intellect, but because of it. For the first time, Azraya wondered if she had underestimated humans not merely as soldiers or warriors, but as a species capable of shaping civilizations. You are different from any human I have known, she said finally. Not weaker, not stronger, but something else. Something I cannot yet name. The human smiled faintly. We are more than you imagine. Humans endure because we must. and because we are stubborn enough to believe the impossible is possible. Azraya stared into the fire, the reflection of flames dancing in her eyes. She had faced gods, monsters, and the fiercest warriors across the stars. Yet this human, small, fragile, clever, and unyielding, challenged her in ways no blade or fleet ever could. She realized something profound. The galaxy had not truly seen the last human, and perhaps it never would. As night fell, the human prepared for rest. Yet their mind remained alert. They thought of the trials ahead, of the challenges Azraya would design, and of the endless possibilities for survival and change. Humans had endured 2 centuries in hiding. Now, they would endure in the open, and in doing so, they would remind the galaxy of the strength, intelligence, and spirit of their kind. Azraya returned to her tower, pacing alone. Her thoughts were filled with the impossible. The human before her, the spark of humanity rekindled, and the realization that perhaps she had not destroyed the last human after all. Perhaps she had only delayed the inevitable, the return of a species the galaxy had feared lost forever. She whispered into the wind, almost to herself. Impossible. I destroyed the last human. And yet, here they stand, alive, unbroken, unconquered. The stars shone bright above Karos IV, indifferent witnesses to a human presence that would soon change everything. Not with violence, but with mind, courage, and the enduring spirit of a species no empire could erase. And somewhere in the fortress, the humans slept, dreaming not of fear, not of vengeance, but of survival, strategy, and the promise that humanity's story was far from over.